wasn't a pep talk. It was just a come to Jesus moment. I played tennis when I was in high school, and I started developing a really bad temper.
Brad Pitt has stood his ground not to forgive an actor whose major lie nearly erased him from Hollywood, despite being constantly apologized to by the actor. That lie didn't just damage his image. It followed him into casting rooms, board meetings, and studio offices, turning him into a risk nobody wanted to hire. Roles disappeared, deals collapsed. The rumor started with someone he once trusted, someone who let an abuse accusation spread, until it almost became his career's death sentence. And that actor is just one of 7 names Brad Pitt has quietly cut off over the years, because behind the fame, there are grudges Hollywood never talks about. What happened between him and these actors will leave you having mixed feelings, especially the actor on number 2 on his list. Counting down from number 7, Sylvester Stallone.
You know, you get older and you just get tired of protecting yourself or having any secrets. You know, you just want to get on with it.
Recently, Brad Pitt revealed what most people never saw coming when he shared one experience he had with Stallone during the early days of his career. In Hollywood, according to him, he has been holding it in all these years, and that now he is older, he can't help but let it out, not minding what people would say. Back then, Brad wasn't the global superstar we know today. He was still fighting for recognition, doing auditions, small roles, and trying to build serious connections in the industry. Stallone, on the other hand, was already a certified action legend, the kind of actor directors listened to and producers trusted with big budgets. And according to Brad, that power difference played a huge role in what happened next. Brad said he had started getting close to a young actress he was working with on a project. It wasn't anything official yet, but there was chemistry, conversations after rehearsals, and plans that felt like they were slowly turning into something real. Then Stallone joined the same social circle around the production, and almost immediately, the dynamic changed. Conversations that once flowed easily now felt awkward and distant. The most painful part wasn't even that the girl chose Stallone, it was how it happened. He claimed Stallone openly pursued her right in front of him, knowing fully well that something was already developing, and because Stallone was the bigger star at the time, with fame, money, and influence, Brad felt like he never stood a chance. In his words, it felt less like losing a girl, and more like being reminded of his place in the Hollywood food chain.
Feeling being stuck in limbo. It's a bit baffling.
Brad admitted that experience stuck with him for years, not because of jealousy alone, but because it made him feel invisible and powerless in an industry that already felt brutal. Over time, Brad's career obviously took off, and the power balance completely shifted. But the emotional memory never really left. He explained that whenever Stallone's name came up, that old feeling of being dismissed and humiliated would resurface, reminding him of a time when he felt small and replaceable, but that's just the tip of the iceberg compared to what the next actor did to him. Number 6, Robin Williams.
Thing anyone threw at me. It was a particular difficult time.
Brad Pitt also opened up about a tense experience he had with Robin Williams that left a lasting mark on him, especially during their time connected to the 2011 animated film Happy Feet 2. At that point in his career, Brad was still trying to be taken seriously in certain Hollywood circles, while Robin Williams was already seen as a legendary, untouchable figure in the industry. According to Brad, what started as playful joking slowly began to feel like public embarrassment. He claimed that Robin once made a comment implying that Brad wasn't man enough to challenge him creatively, and even though it was said in a joking tone, it landed differently in a room full of producers, voice actors, and crew members who already saw Robin as the dominant personality on set. Brad said that after that moment, the energy around him shifted. People laughed at Robin's jokes, but afterward, he noticed that some crew members began treating him like the weak link in the room. Conversations would stop when he walked in, and suggestions he made during recording sessions were brushed aside more quickly than before. It wasn't loud bullying, it was subtle, quiet disrespect, which in Hollywood can feel even worse. What hurt him most, Brad explained, was that Robin had so much influence that even a small joke could turn into a label. He also admitted that he never confronted Robin directly about it. not because he agreed with it, but because he didn't feel powerful enough at the time to challenge someone who was already a comedy icon and a favorite of the studio. Speaking up, he felt, could have made things worse and turned him into the difficult one on a project that was already dominated by bigger personalities. Years later, Brad says he doesn't describe it as hatred in the aggressive sense, but as a moment that deeply affected how he viewed certain relationships in Hollywood. However, this incident didn't paint as much the experience with this next actor. Number 5, Tom Cruise.
Was a bit nerve-wracking. Got there, did the deal, and somehow I just remember running home. It was just too much.
Brad Pitt also spoke about a moment involving Tom Cruise that made him realize how ruthless Hollywood power games could be, especially early in his career when he was still fighting for serious leading roles. According to Brad, there was a major project he had already been attached to, with early talks going well, and the studio clearly interested in building the film around him. It was supposed to be a big step up, the kind of role that could finally push him into a new level of credibility. He was so high on anticipation, but then Tom Cruise's name entered the conversation, and everything changed almost overnight. Brad claimed that once Cruise found out he wasn't the first choice, he allegedly made it clear that he wouldn't be part of the project if Pitt remained attached. Not openly, not in public, but through agents, studio, conversations, and quiet pressure that powerful stars know how to apply. Suddenly, the studio started reworking the cast, and Brad's name slowly disappeared from discussions he had once been central to. He said it became obvious that the studio was more afraid of upsetting Tom Cruise than losing him, and that realization hit hard. Brad admitted that at the time, he couldn't even react publicly. Speaking out could have labeled him as difficult or ungrateful, which was the fastest way to stall a young actor's career. So he stayed quiet, watched the project move forward without him, and learned another harsh lesson about how status controls decisions in the industry. Years later, when both of them became global superstars, people assumed there was mutual respect between them. But Brad says the tension never really disappeared. Brad has made it clear that certain actions, especially when they affect someone's livelihood, are not things you simply forget, even when success eventually comes your way. Still speaking of simple, here's another simple experience that lingers in the heart of Brad till date. Number 4, Harrison Ford.
I felt I was being forced and to do something I'm probably the only actor that actually wanted to keep the script throughout, as it was instead of, everything that had been worked on.
According to Brad, Harrison had a very controlling presence during a project they were connected to. The kind where his opinions weren't just suggestions, they were treated like final decisions. Brad said anytime he tried to bring up ideas about his character or question certain scenes, he was quickly shut down, sometimes in front of other crew members, which made the situation even more humiliating. Brad claimed there were moments when he was pushed into performing scenes exactly the way Harrison wanted, even when he personally felt the choices didn't fit the character or the story. Instead of collaboration, it felt like obedience was expected. And in an industry where reputation spreads fast, Brad said he felt trapped between standing up for himself and being labeled difficult by someone far more respected and powerful at the time. What bothered him most wasn't just the lack of creative freedom, but the way disagreement was treated as disrespect. Brad explained that Harrison didn't take kindly to being challenged, and once he sensed resistance, the atmosphere on set would change. Conversations would become tense, instructions more aggressive, and Brad would be made to feel like he was slowing down the production simply by having opinions. He said it slowly started affecting his confidence. Instead of focusing on giving his best performance, he became more worried about not stepping on toes. That kind of pressure, Brad explained, takes the joy out of acting and turns every scene into a test of how much control you're willing to surrender. Brad also mentioned that other crew members noticed the imbalance but didn't intervene because no one wanted to risk upsetting a star with that level of influence. And that silence, to him, was just as frustrating as the behavior itself, because it showed how easily power can isolate someone who doesn't have the same status. While he doesn't describe it as outright hatred, Brad admitted that the resentment came from feeling controlled and unheard at a time when he was still building his confidence in the industry. But what if we told you that this next set of actors are Brad's top-ranked, most hated? Number 3, Jennifer Aniston.
Taking their freedom, splitting their family apart.
It's abhorrent.
Brad Pitt also opened up about how deeply hurt he was by the way his breakup with Jennifer Aniston played out in the public eye, saying it almost destroyed his reputation and nearly stalled his career at a critical point in time. According to Brad, once the marriage ended, the media narrative shifted fast and hard. Suddenly, headlines painted him as the villain, the abusive husband, the heartless cheater, the man who broke a perfect Hollywood marriage. Brad claimed that while he stayed mostly silent, statements and interviews from Jennifer's side, combined with non-stop tabloid stories, made it seem like the worst possible version of him was being presented as fact to the world. He said the problem wasn't just public opinion, it was how that image followed him into professional spaces. Producers became cautious, brands hesitated, studios worried about backlash. Brad explained that when you're being framed as toxic in the court of public opinion, no one wants to risk attaching their project to your name, especially when social pressure is high. What made it even more painful for him was that he felt he had no real way to defend himself without making things uglier. Responding publicly would have turned a private breakup into a full-blown media war, and he didn't want to drag personal details into headlines just to save face. So he stayed quiet while the story kept growing, without his side being fully heard. Brad admitted that he felt betrayed, not just because the marriage ended, but because he believed some things should have stayed private. Over time, his career recovered, but the emotional damage remained. Brad explained that it changed how he trusted people and how he handled future relationships in the spotlight, which is exactly why his hatred for her is loud. Number 2, Denzel Washington.
I was running to things to avoid tough feelings, painful feelings.
Brad Pitt also revealed a personal disappointment involving Denzel Washington, an actor he had long admired, but ended up feeling deeply let down by. According to Brad, the incident revolved around his wedding to Angelina Jolie, a moment he had imagined as a celebration, surrounded by close friends, colleagues, and mentors. Brad said that he had been close to Denzel earlier in his career, respecting him as both an actor and a figure who seemed to embody integrity in Hollywood. But when the wedding invitation went out, Denzel didn't attend, and it wasn't due to scheduling conflicts or legitimate reasons. According to Brad, he later discovered that Denzel was upset with him over his divorce from Jennifer Aniston, feeling that Brad had made personal choices that didn't align with the values he respected. Brad explained that he felt judged and isolated by someone he had admired, someone whose approval he once valued deeply. The wedding was meant to be a moment of joy, yet Denzel's absence felt like a public statement of disapproval, and Brad said that left a lasting mark on how he viewed certain friendships in the industry. Brad admitted that this was a rare moment of frustration for him, because he believed in giving people space to make their own life choices without expecting judgment. He said he had hoped that long-standing respect and shared experiences would outweigh personal disagreements. But in Hollywood, even mentors can let personal opinions create distance. Over time, Brad said he worked through his feelings privately, but the hatred never fully disappeared. But here's the one actor that did the worst of it all to Brad. Number 1, James Haven.
Yeah, I had a restraining order against him for a while. This incident in '94 we don't like to talk about, but
Brad Pitt also opened up about a deeply personal and painful chapter involving James Haven, Angelina Jolie's younger brother. According to Brad, their relationship started out civil enough, but over time, it became a source of tension that he says contributed to the eventual breakdown of his marriage. Brad claimed that James had a habit of constantly stirring the pot between him and Angelina, whether it was casual comments about their relationship, subtle criticisms, or friendly advice that seemed designed to provoke arguments. Brad said the effect was cumulative. He described it as a slow-burning fire that kept flaring up at the most inconvenient moments, turning minor disagreements into full-blown fights. At first, Brad tried to ignore it, thinking family dynamics could be navigated with patience and understanding. But according to him, James's interference didn't stop, and at times, it crossed lines that made Brad feel unsafe. He said there were occasions where James's behavior became aggressive and threatening, escalating tensions to the point where Brad had no choice but to take legal precautions. Before the divorce, Brad claimed he had to secure a restraining order against James, citing instances where he felt his personal safety and the well-being of his family were at risk. Brad admitted that this was one of the darkest parts of his marriage. He explained that the interference didn't just strain his relationship with Angelina, it created an atmosphere of constant conflict and distrust. He said it was emotionally exhausting, and that the added pressure made it nearly impossible to salvage the marriage, despite his efforts to work through their problems, and he could never forgive James for that. Just like the other 6 actors listed before, let's know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like and share,